Let's talk about, this is actually kind of the big news. It just kind of broke in the last hour or so. Monty is not going to be returning for Overwatch League Season 3 as a caster or analyst, and he left a long 12 person, or not 12 person, 12 tweet chain. And there's quite a bit here. I think I'm just going to probably read it really quick, and then we'll talk about it. So just this morning, he says, I would like to announce that today is the last day of my Overwatch League contract, and I will not be returning next year. Although I had a great time helping to develop and launch the league in the first 2 seasons, I'm leaving to pursue further career growth. The departure of Nate Nanzer from Overwatch League led to irreconcilable creative and philosophical differences between myself and the league's current leadership, and all parties will be better served by parting ways. What's next for me? I've been granted exciting opportunities to produce esports content and broadcast in accordance with my own vision, standards, and 15 years of endemic industry experience. This means that I will not continue to perform as on-camera talent, but I will also broaden my skill set as a creative director and producer. I'll be able to share more details on my new projects in the coming weeks. As I depart, I want to give a special thanks to Nate Nanzer, Mike Morheim, Amy Morheim, Marissa Palumbo, and Kiki Aitken, who brought me into Overwatch League. I also want to express my gratitude to my casting desk hosting colleagues for creating the special, cooperative, and fun atmosphere that shone through on camera. I'm extremely grateful for our camaraderie and the opportunity to work with a wealth of industry veterans. A final thank you goes to the fabulous development team, particularly Jeff Kaplan and Scott Mercer, for our many conversations and the thoughtfulness put into all of your decisions. The most difficult part of the transition is leaving my casting partner of the last 7 years, Gigi Doa. I could not have asked for a more skilled, funny, dedicated, and true friend on this wild esports journey. Leaving behind the synergy we created through our shared sense of humor and thoughtful style is the saddest part of departing Overwatch League. I am confident we will, however, find many ways to continue working together in the future. Unfortunately, my departure from Overwatch League means that I will be suspending production of Oversight with my co-host Thorin, and I will cease creating Overwatch-focused analysis and power rankings on my personal channel. Although I enjoy making these videos, the low demand for supplementary Overwatch League content means that my energies are best used elsewhere. I wish the Overwatch League success this pivotal year of localization, and I hope we can find some way to work together again in the future. No doubt you will find me cheering at the Los Angeles homestands next year. Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
Some definitely really positive, fond words, and some kind of what would be the correct? They're kind of
ominous, cryptic.
Yeah, there's even some that are kind of cutting.
Yeah.
Like very particular. Like tweet number 2 says the departure of Nate Nanzer led to irreconcilable, creative and philosophical differences between myself and the league's current leadership, and all parties would be served by parting ways. Like that's a pretty, that feels like a pretty big jab.
Oh, I think he's been jabbing this whole month.
Yeah.
I think he's been just like saying things without saying them, if that makes sense. He wasn't able to release the news, but he's trying to explain himself. So if you really want to understand this move in its weirdness, in its entirety, I would go back about a month and read Monty's Twitter posts and read the history leading up to this, and then really look at post 2 and say, okay, what's going on here?
Okay,
what's happening?
Let's not be chicken shits here. The real problem is that, and I also feel very much the same way, that the Overwatch League hired sports producers that have never introduced the sports into the mainstream. They have at best had a career in maintaining a sport there, and maybe making it grow. It's very different from
and ground floor working, right?
Exactly. So it's also they don't know the space. Who else? Who has a better accolade or has a better proven track record, for instance, at raising something off the ground than the MLG people? That Blizzard, the MLG office, Major League Gaming in the early or late 2000s till I think 2012, maybe 2013. I don't quite remember. Were tremendously successful in relative terms. That they were then bought by Blizzard. Ask who's working there. Still, of course, also certainly a pattern that should be recognized in that context as well. So the growth numbers for Overwatch League or for Overwatch generally, streaming numbers are down. The only channel that does really do numbers is the Overwatch League itself, and the viewership numbers and the AMA are, we have to fairly say, from January to September, it is the most watched the most watched Twitch channel on the platform. But of course, we also have to consider bonuses that the broadcast enjoys, such as the drops that viewers get, and also the restream structure, which by the way is changed before the season or mid-season. It was initially honestly quite dodgy, where they hid that it was a restream after the stream went down, and then finally, once they were called out also by people within the scene for that practice, and basically what they did was, I think it's called rewatch or whatever. They used to have it at the very back of the title, and it didn't really look like it was an actual
constantly
restream.
People like, oh, is this live? Is this live? Like,
yes,
is this live?
Very often, right? So they then moved that to the front. Certainly much more fair to do it this way. And the thing is, you're still farming AFK viewers.
Yeah.
Now, we can certainly talk about those numbers, and also Nielsen coming in and verifying those. Question, of course, is how engaged are these people? Is the chat moving as much as you would expect it to move? For instance, like chat interaction seems relatively low in Overwatch League. Why that is, we can only hypothesize. We have no access to reliable TV number, or not reliable. I mean, just as reliable as anything. I just expect that they are just as messed with as anything else. Especially those from China, of course, or the contextualization. That's also why people are pushing AMA. Bottom line is, even if really a lot of people watch Overwatch League, they don't watch anything else. The content that is currently consumed, like some of the best esports content, such as Platshed, rarely cracks 20k views. Now, if we look at podcasts such as Something Inside back in the day, or even now, like Counterpoints, these biggest podcasts and these other esports that should be, okay, League is definitely bigger. We know that from the statistics, but CSGO shouldn't be. Like, why are we getting a fifth to a 10th of the viewership on these contents? No idea. Then other casters come out, such as Uber, talking about, well, by casting Overwatch. And I think it's fair to say at this point that not only is Uber the best technical play-by-play, but he's probably also the most hyped, or brings the most hyped. Why is he not getting the social media following that we see from other esports? Even our very loved people such as Sideshow and Bren in other esports in the same capacity over 2 years, they would have a way bigger following in historically in other esports. It therefore creates a situation where, honestly, and I also have to say this as someone that's thinking about his own career in esports, creates a scenario where 2020 is not looking like it's a move forward as an esports career, especially for surrounding media or talent. I think it's a death trap, if I'm being honest. And when Jacob Wolf says this is a make or break season, at best, this is a break or maintain season. Meaning this season is the one that holds out for Overwatch 2. There's not going to be an explosion in viewership unless something about the numbers will be tracked differently and we find a new way to interpret them. I would say the homestands, if anything, take away from the viewership, not least because of the different time zones that it serves. I think the narratives will be ripped apart. As a community, we'll have very different discourses. Of course, we could argue that there are opportunities there. Then again, those, like, for instance, something like match recaps where people can, read about in short words what they missed in the other games already wasn't at all consumed in this. Even the drama threads don't do that much. I can also say I broke some of the biggest news in 2019 in terms of the Overwatch League. They're pitiful. Like a normal feature piece in other esports can expect about half as much as the views we got for releasing 222. This scene, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that we have such a saturation of and such a long broadcast time that people don't like to consume shorter content. That's very possible, but it's not happening. Either the viewers are a completely different demographic that haven't yet found the taste for shoulder content, and we also saw that in the early demise of Watchpoint, a format that I think would have worked very well in any other esport. Maybe it's something, maybe we still need to find our formula. I still remain, even the people that do it very well, like Sideshow, like Bren, like Avast, are not seeing the type of numbers they would be seeing in other esports, and they should think about what that implies for the future of their careers. And you also see now every caster having a second deal in play, or not starting to create their own content, having their own channels, having ways to sustain themselves otherwise, to give them a perspective, because the perspective isn't there in Overwatch as it is presented right now.
Yeah.
I mean, Overwatch League, and this has been there's no question about it. It's inarguable. The Overwatch League is probably the most disappointing example of brand building at this scale that I think I've ever seen. I think the Overwatch League itself, I think, is done fine. But when you look at the individual brands, look at their YouTube followings, look at their Twitter followings. I mean, even just look at the engagement. All you have to do is look at the impressions and engagements on some of this content, and it's just it doesn't make sense. So much of it doesn't make sense, and I don't know, man. Like I want to walk into 2020 being really optimistic. I do, and I think I think between Joe and Yiska, we'll probably have to be the one be like, hey, all is not lost here, but this is not a great tweet number 11. I think from Monty was one that really stuck home with me. It was, I enjoy making the videos, but the low demand for supplementary Overwatch League content means that my energies are best used elsewhere. And for somebody who is as huge as Monty, who if you're Overwatch League and you want somebody making content about you that isn't actively on your broadcast, Monty's going to be there, right? He was casting Overwatch League since Apex, and then of course being one of the premier casters in Overwatch League. Somebody you want there still in your corner doing something.
Yep.
You want Monty there. And content creators we see it all the time. Threads get posted about competitive Overwatch content. And basically people kind of go, overall the content kind of sucks around competitive Overwatch. But here's a list of, 4 or 5 different places. Thankfully, Yiska and Volamel are brought up often, and the show are brought up often as well. So thank you all for that. But there's not a whole lot there, and it's really difficult to justify the time. It's really just difficult to justify, and it's not the fans' fault. I'm going to be the first one to say it's not the fans' fault for not wanting to consume that. It's the league's fault for not creating a league that you want to sink your teeth in even when you're not watching it. I mean, we've all I'm super into TFT right now. What do I do when I'm not playing TFT? I'm watching TFT streams. What I do when I'm not watching TFT streams, I'm looking up guides, or I am watching TFT streams anyway. And there's just not that hunger for Overwatch content. And it's easy, I think, to play I think that there are a lot of fans who don't play the game who like watching the Overwatch League. And I think that localization has actually done a lot for that.
Sure.
But in the sense of, you know what, I like esports and I have a team in Florida, I'm going to watch all the Florida games. And that does work, and I'll argue that with anybody till the day I die, that does work at some level and works in their favor and is a good idea. But it's not enough. There's not enough high-quality content being churned out, and there's not enough reason to churn out high-quality content. It's a chicken and egg thing. It's just it's a quandary that is on the Overwatch League front office to resolve.
I think this goes a lot farther, and I think you highlight this maybe unintentionally. You constantly bring up, you're looking at TFT, you're playing TFT, you're looking at guides, you're looking at streams. This all goes back to the game. The game is not fun. The game is not interesting. Overwatch as a game is not being played.
Yeah,
it's not about the content. In my opinion, this has nothing to do with the content.
Being played, right? Like
nobody's
people are messing around.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares to play this game. This game is old news.
Seriously.
So if the game's old news, then the streams are old news, and the content's old news, and the guide's old news. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
This is just we're already just on a holding pattern for Overwatch 2. They've already released that half the devs have just left to go work on Overwatch 2. 90%, I think it was. So we've been in a holding pattern. There's no new updates coming. There's no new heroes. There's no new anything. We'll get some measly balanced changes that are disappointing, and we'll move on. I think it comes back to the game. The game's not fun. Nobody likes playing the game. I think that people who
my wife
have enjoyed playing Overwatch.
You watch yourself, sir.
Hey, that's fair. That's fair. 1 out of a million.
I'm not even sure if that's necessarily true, because like the views on, for instance, dumb GIFs in Overwatch aren't that terrible. I will say as soon as the content gets serious, Rainbow Six is bigger than us.
Yeah.
I think so. And I wanted to say, like, what Joe was saying is nobody likes playing the game. I will say it's a very polarizing experience. Name a more frustrating game to lose in than Overwatch.
Yeah.
It's pretty difficult.
I have my opinions, but
name a more fun game to win in than Overwatch, or especially a close match. I think close matches in Overwatch are really fun. I get it if it's not your number one, Joe.
Yeah.
But I think it's a satisfying winning experience.
That's really not what I'm getting at. I think that like most games that are considered esports are pretty fun in terms of like if you have a close match, like you're equal, even if you lose. Those are fun games, right? And you're gonna have those matches
as well, though.
Yes. But like, there's nothing enticing me to come back to this game. There's nothing. There's no big elemental League of Legends update that changes parts of the game and, fresh new things, new items, new this, new that. Wow, cool, interesting. We get
a new
2% off of Torbjorn's armor rework. New map. You guys want to play Paris? Paris is pretty cool, right? Who in the chat wants to play Paris?
Hey, don't you bring up Paris on the show ever again.
Paris is fun. What about Volsky Industries #2? Huh? We like that, right? No, They have no idea what they're doing.
All right, I see your point. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I get it.
You have to bring people to this game, and certainly it's not Overwatch Classic. I don't even know if that's real, but God, I hope that's not real, because that is like such delusional thinking. It's like, well, Overwatch, World of Warcraft did Classic mode, so Overwatch can do Classic mode too. Why? We could do Classic mode. Jeff Kaplan skin. What? It's exciting. Come back and play the game. This is stupid. Give me heroes. Give me interesting abilities. Rework the abilities. Rework the heroes. No, we're gonna get Jeff Kaplan skins.
I mean, so to be fair, I don't blame them for shifting the development team if they're going to Overwatch 2. Like,
of course, I understand that it's a calculated loss, right? Like you have to take a couple steps back to go forward. But at this point in such a pivotal point in your game's history, because I think like the game and the esport are conjoined, this is an important time to get things right. And to see, we'll get some balance patches. We're not getting any cool updates. We're not getting PvE until Overwatch 2, and we don't even know when that's coming out.
I love that Joe is saying all of this with a 3/4 empty bottle of white wine.
I was hoping nobody could see that, but it is what it is.
Well, now you can.
Isn't it baffling to anyone else that the season where it's really important to get right is the season that is the one that will have the biggest content draw yet because of Overwatch 2?
Yep.
Isn't that like...
Is that not weird to anybody else?
The only strategical reason why you would do that at this time, right? And not, let's say, continue releasing. And then, I mean, if you want to be a dick about it, you can, hold out the content once the revenue sharing comes in. And when you take a little dip, dude. But, no, like, seriously, that is a forced move.
Yeah.
Right? It is basically, and I agree with it to a large extent as well, that it is necessary that a Hail Mary play needed to be made. Namely, we need something else, and the naming process of this is largely important to bringing people back and gaining their confidence in this. I also think that Blizzard has historically been very good at 2.0 patches. Maybe they just learned from the PR aspect of it.
Sure.
I will say that I was very disappointed by what I saw at BlizzCon. That might just be my consumer behavior. That's fair. I'm sure people that will enjoy the PvE, even though the PvE didn't look that inspired at that point either.
No, I still think that a lot of this is a work in progress, to be fair. So TBD on that.
I mean, when did the development process start for this? 2017? Something like that, like last quarter of 2017.
It's been in the works for a little bit, yeah.
It makes sense for the new engine and whatnot. That's all fine. I also really like the two other things: the workshop and the replay system coming in with that. It's just, man, it felt a little bit late to everything. We were kind of it. They are smart moves that come half a year to a year too late, and then you also don't have the numbers to support something where you can produce something like the auto battler genre in your engine, right?
Sure.
Like the other highly moddable spaces in other games are usually like RTS based. That's how we got the MOBA genre. And am I forgetting anything else? And I mean the auto battler as well.
Didn't Counter-Strike come from like a Half-Life mod though?
Half-Life mod, yes. Yeah, but we don't have
But majoritively it is RTS, to be fair.
Yeah, Arma, Spawn DayZ,
That's
that
true.
type of genre. Like for FPS, this would have been kind of fun also because we have these ability elements in there. It's just I don't think we have the critical numbers of very creative and driven people anymore to create these workshop
and why is that
things? Yes,
because nobody's playing the game.
It was a little bit too late. Yeah.
And that's kind of been Blizzard's MO for a while. I mean, I can't say that I can speak for any of the other games, larger communities. I won't claim to even be in them. But at least for Overwatch, everything comes too late. Whether it's the replays, whether it's the balance changers, whether it's, people don't like goats. I have my opinions on it, but I understand the general populace that aren't on our cow didn't really care for goats. People who are non-endemic to esports and Overwatch, that have played the game before, like, I stopped playing Overwatch because I don't know, I just didn't really like goats. It didn't affect them, but it was the perception that this was just this shadow looming over this game, and it just never got changed. They tried, just never happened. Yeah. I don't know why these things come too late, but it's very obvious to me. It's very obvious to the three of us. It's probably very obvious.
It's a very reactive development cycle, whether it's from the marketing or from the actual game design to the actual structuring of broadcasts. very reactive, and there's a part of me that appreciates that. But there's a part of me that goes, how is this not seen? Like, sure, you miss a detail, right? Like, oh shoot, we I don't even know what would be a good example of a small detail. Something. We let goats go on a patch too long, or we didn't find a meaningful way to spectate it, and boom, we created it. That's one thing, but how can you watch and consume the game and be like, I don't see a problem here. This looks fine. Like, I feel like there might be just some people at the very top.
To change a little.
I think that there's a group of people at the very top who are looking at a series of spreadsheets and maybe don't even ever play the game.
No.
I'm not. I mean, it's very possible. I think we gotta definitely let the door open for much more, human and ways where people fail while still being competent.
Sure,
I think that's
course.
very possible for the game development side. That it's just like, okay, this is unusual. Like, we created something that has a certain stress level that it creates in players as unusual, where people tire out from the game much more quickly than we anticipated, and we struggle to find these things, and we need to think about game design in much different ways, and the social interaction of the time is also something that needs to be considered, where we need to reevaluate if the laws of game design even really hold up anymore.
To this.
I will also say it's also very possible that the entire Overwatch League model is very successful for the few that participate in the big deals, right? It's very possible that it is a good deal for the Overwatch League teams. I even think we will have most homestands sold out. I think that will happen.
Absolutely. I actually think that the Overwatch live viewing experience is great.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I for the events that I've attended, I've quite enjoyed my time.
I would love to attend an Overwatch League or competitive Overwatch LAN with you three guys anytime. I would love to go out with my friends anytime and have that be a way we spend an evening. Yeah. I actually think that that's going to be one of the stronger points of, despite the homestand models leading to probably less competitive overall Overwatch. Mm-hmm. Despite the homestand models leading to probably a less refined meta, I think that when you go and actually play and watch, I don't think that matters as much.
I think there's some things that are confusing about Overwatch, where, for instance, in GOATs, like, if a Rhine landed a fat shatter, as in like 2 people, it very often actually didn't result in anything but a couple of cooldowns being blown. It was directly very impactful theoretically in terms of the resource management, but people were then tricked into like thinking, wow, this is a sick shatter. And then the beat comes in that, of course, is very important to force out for the eventual graph. Yeah. But at the same time, they still felt like tricked into having this emotion, because like they hit a 5-man shatter, the Lucio beats it, nobody dies, and everyone's like, was I just tricked by this shatter? Even though, yes, it created big value because it forced out a big cooldown, right? That later on in the fight will then start the excitement. And things like this in the viewership experience, that is hard to figure out, where how do you make it exciting for a player or satisfying for a player and also for an audience? The thing is, and I also want to highlight this to give a little bit of the balance to this take. You got to understand that the way, like, us as content creators, we are almost counting on that a company builds an esport based on the entire model of more viewers is more better. When we think about how the Overwatch League was advertised, especially before these meetings, like, we had so many investors, and like, like, if you remember Reunited, like, some of those business guys were talking about how the problem really was that the average esports fan spent so much less money per fan on their respective hobby than a sports fan does. Like, how do we increase this? Once again, it's very possible that this is a driven a driven and created and artificially built scene where we don't have the same viewership numbers of engaged viewers. Therefore, it doesn't trickle out into the surrounding media, into the talent's pocket, into, all these systems. But where it does trickle in is in the merch, in the homestand tickets, and then into the league's pocket that way. And they just make more money of each individual viewer and don't even need that much, that many viewers. It just doesn't help any of us. And that's why what we say here has to be considered biased in some form. I can say, well, it certainly hurts my pocket that it is that way. But at the same time, I can also say, as a fan of esports, that this is really not that much of an engaging experience.
And that's the big thing here. Number one, I want to make sure that we take a moment to pop away from the keyboard warriors on YouTube, or whatever 1-star reviews on iTunes, or angry tweets on Twitter. Number one, we're still here. Yeah. Number two, we actually all really like the scene and want to see it succeed.
Yeah.
And I think anybody who's actually spoken out against Overwatch League, I think of like Seagull. Remember Seagull's like
state of the
about
game?
A year ago? Yeah, state of the game. And it's not because he hates Overwatch all of a sudden.
No. If anything, he loves it too much.
They want to see it succeed. Number three, I think that if any of you actually watch live Overwatch matches with any of us, you'll find that I think we're annoyingly passionate about watching those games. Go ahead.
Can I just say one thing? As people that try or are esports professionals, you can only ever force yourself to love a game this many times or for this long.
Yep.
You ideally want to create content around a game you fell in love with. I can say for me, it so far has only been Overwatch and World of Warcraft back in the day.
Pretty close, yeah. Add Halo to me, and that's about it.
Yeah, you cannot choose which games you love. You can try to grind into the know, and I think, for instance, someone like Crumbs is the principal example of this. It's not like he was lazy. It's just like you can't force love for specific games, and then you got to go home especially when it looks good. So, that is it's just a heartbreak, I think, for all of us that we are in this situation. And to spin back to the Monty topic, it is for me. It's a canary in a coal mine signal.
Yeah, I feel like we should probably close the door on this for right now. Is that all right?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we've ranted long enough.
I feel better now.
Everybody, we want to hear your thoughts on it. We want to hear what makes Overwatch League special for you and Overwatch special for you. There's a lot of people who Overwatch League is their first esports experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet that even though us three have probably seen other esports experiences that maybe are I'll be honest, the Halo experience for esports, it was good, it was fine, but I probably hold it way higher in regard than probably like a League of Legends, someone whose first esports experience was League of Legends, and sometimes your first is something that you're really passionate about, and I fully get that. I don't want you to stop being passionate about it. I don't want you to feel bad for liking it. No matter how many people leave the scene, no matter how many people talk about how awful Overwatch is or Overwatch League is, if you love it, don't stop loving it. Because I've definitely played games in the past that I really loved, and I stopped playing because my friends made me feel stupid for liking it or loving it. Don't ever be that person. But let us know what makes it special for you, and let us, help us. I don't want to say we'd all be lying to you if we have perfect perspective on these things. We have a lot of resources that the average Overwatch League fan doesn't have as far as what's going on behind the scenes. We know some things that the average person isn't going to know. People love it when Yiska flaunt it. Sorry. And yeah, I just take a step back, relax, breathe. World's not ending. Nobody's life revolves around the success of their specific esport. And have fun. That's what it's about. Have fun. Right? Sports.
Indeed.
Sports is
Indeed.
about having fun. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think Trevor May has always said, he goes, at the end of the day, I get to play a children's game professionally and make, he makes, I think, I know it's public, but I think he made like $600,000 last year while he was on the injured reserve.
The injured list.
Yeah. So, hey, like what an amazing blessing it is to be alive during a time where that's actually a thing.
100%. Be grateful. I'm very grateful. I'm grateful for what Overwatch has given me. Like, I just wish things were a little bit better. That's all.
Yep.
Well, not better. I think I wish things were different. Let's say.
Yeah.
Different. Trevor May pitched last year. Yeah, he did. You're right. It was the year before. It's when we did the weekly intake, a weekly podcast with Trevor and myself. We made like 7 episodes. We're like, we like playing games together.
Nice.
We like talking, but let's not do this. Yeah. All right. And then Fortnite happened. Okay.
Yeah.
We do have a few things.